let's cut to the quick here, Kate Mansfield. The definition of feminism, according to the Oxford Dictionary, is the advocacy of women's rights on the ground of the equality of the sexes. Right?
Yeah.
Why should Stacey, like all lap dancers, strippers, whatever, not be free to exercise their right to do whatever they like? Isn't that the purest definition of feminism for a woman, is that she is free to do what she wishes with her body and her life?
No, I don't agree with that, because I think that essentially sex workers and strippers are making their body into a commodity for sale, which I think detracts from other valuable assets that women have.
What about models in magazines?
I think the same. I think that the whole media...
So you would ban all models?
No, I think that the way that women are shown and the emphasis we have on sex and on the physical appearance of women detracts from true feminism, which is about helping women to understand how to empower themselves, which is what I do as a job, in ways financially, emotionally, without having to take their clothes off.
Cindy Crawford, right? Where she doesn't go down the crude sex route. She does very classy pictures,
or the
right?
Victoria's Secret models.
But ultimately is selling her body and how she looks, right? Why is that not feminism? Most people would think Cindy Crawford's a perfect example of somebody who's made millions from a very good career as a supermodel.
Yeah, but you can make millions online like I do as a female entrepreneur and a businesswoman without having to degrade yourself and take your clothes off and sell
Cindy Crawford degrade herself, then?
I think so on a subtle level, yes. I think that we're bombarded in the media with images of women selling sex, and I think it's wrong. And I think that lots of young girls, we have an ethical responsibility to young women to show them a different pathway. And I think that it's from the dark ages. I think feminism has evolved, and I'm blazing the way in this respect with my clients, where lots of women are in abusive relationships and can't get out for similar reasons. And I think that often as well, sex workers and strippers have been sexually abused in the past, and I think they're acting something out. They're trying to get control and they're trying to get power over men. And I think men are victims as well in this respect.
Hi.
Do you agree in any sense that there is there can be an abusive background to this? I think a lot of people will be surprised. You call yourself the ethical stripper. Lots of people will be surprised that something which is seen as the objectification of women and the exploitation of their sexual characteristics can then be perpetrated by women who call themselves feminist. How can that be the case?
Well, I think this kind of word objectification is a bit of a misnomer, because we have to be really careful that we're not confusing things, that we're not conflating women who consent to being objectified and to showing their bodies how they want and to be seen how they want to be seen with unwelcome sexual harassment, right? They're quite like two different things. I don't disagree in terms of...
Although, just to pick up on that, it doesn't stop being objectification just because you've consented to work in that industry, does it?
Absolutely, and that's my point as well. I think that the objectification of women, there is a confusion when somebody's been abused sexually or emotionally. I think it creates a confusion where they don't understand sexual boundaries, and that they start often for women trying to get their power back over men.
I think you're arguing a slightly different point, but Stacey, you respond to the idea that you can be a feminist in an objectification industry.
I just think kind of going straight in and starting to talk about the ways women are abused when we're talking about a job is like the kind of stigma that is part of the problem. So stigmatising people who work in the industry, stigmatising women who do consent to being objectified is adding to the problem, and that's how we kind of end up at the end of that, which is women campaigning to get strip clubs shut down, which only ever makes the problem invisible and doesn't actually deal with the causes and what's driving women into the industry in the first place, which can be all sorts of reasons, but it's really demeaning and undermining to just assume that we're all victims and therefore it just shouldn't happen.
I'm not saying that you're all victims. I'm saying that I've personally worked with a lot of women who've been sex workers and strippers, and I know statistically there's a high number of them that have suffered some kind of abuse as a child, whether it's sexual or not, I don't know. But my point is that the whole strip club industry and the whole sex industry, and also the media in many ways, is constructed around
you widened it. You, interestingly to me, you widened it to all models, right? Yeah. Would you widen it to the Formula One grid girls, to the girls who go out at darts tournaments and parade around?
Absolutely, I think
the girls who get in boxing. Yeah. You would get rid of all that. You would deprive. Hang on, let me ask a question very precisely. You would want none of those women who do any of those things to have any right to be a feminist exercising their right to do what they want with their bodies?
No, I'm not talking about them specifically. I'm talking about...
Well, I am.
OK, but as a society...
You just went through that list and went, no, I don't agree with that, don't agree with that. I mean, there's very little you do agree with in terms of a woman's right to do what she wants with her body, it seems to me.
Because I don't agree that it's a conscious decision.
I think there's really another important distinction between 2D media, as in we've suddenly put sex workers and models in the same camp, but they're actually very, very different jobs. So women who are objectified in the media as models, as actresses, people are turned into literally screens and images. That's a form of objectification that doesn't happen to me when I'm a stripper. So when I'm at work in a strip club, I'm talking to customers like I'm talking to one of you now. I can sit and argue about Brexit. If I don't like interaction with the customer, I can get up and walk away.
You're completely in
People
control.
massively misunderstand how humanising my job actually is. So to assume that sex work and stripping is the same as modelling, it's really not.
You're also a pole dancer of quite some repute. I mean, you're very good at it, right?
Oh, well, I used to be.
I know we've seen pole dancers on talent shows, right? It's now appreciated as an art form. I've seen world-class pole dancers, right, on America's Got Talent, who were dazzling artists. At what point does this all just get under the umbrella, as far as you're concerned, as demeaning, if actually it can be quite artistic too?
Well, I think that, as I said, as a society at large, we are moving towards even worse problems in terms of objectification of women. And I think lots of teenage girls actually are in a lot of trouble through social media. And I've got a 16-year-old son, lots of his female friends feel under a massive amount of pressure to perform sexually as young as 13 and 14 because they feel that they have to live up to this objectified ideal.
You can't lay all that at the blame of lap dancing clubs and a relatively small industry.
I totally agree, but I think the industry itself is very corrupt and exploitative of men and of women. I think lots of men that go to strip clubs.
Okay,
so
what we're doing is we're campaigning.
We've had a big reaction. I've got to say, there was Stacey on this. Caitlin, if a woman wants to strip, let her. We have male strippers, Magic Mike, right? We see him. What's the difference, right? Catherine on Twitter, can strippers be feminist? Yes, they can.
Do you see a difference between
get
male
a grip.
strippers and female strippers? Because I do.
Well, I
think they're selling two different things.
I happen to know, because of my experience in the industry, they as a group have a different experience of their jobs.
Yes.
It's seen differently and it's done differently.
Yes.
The pay structure is different. The way it's set up, the business model is different. I'm not going to sit and try and argue that there are not problems in my industry.
Yeah.
For sure. That's why we set up this thing called the East London Strippers Collective, and that's why I'm campaigning and writing a book about it. But what we need is to change them from within. We need reform. We need to reform this industry by updating it and bringing in some of these feminist points about equality and about women's kind of autonomy.
And I totally agree with that. And I want to say I totally respect the work you're doing with women to try and empower them within the industry.
OK, we've got to leave it there. It's a good debate. It's a good debate. My issue is when Kim Kardashian and the others do their topless selfies and they post them to tens of millions of young, impressionable girls, I have a problem with that. But I don't have a problem with licensed lap dancing clubs if it's for adult audiences. Everyone is consenting to this environment.
Safe place.
It's regulated. It's safe for the women. I mean,
we don't have the safety,
I think the council has reached the same conclusion. Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, ultimately that's a different thing to me, as it is to posting stuff to tens of millions of young girls.